everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the show. See Rick's on, Wrenchson's on. Hope everybody's had a good week last week, good weekend. I'm actually getting ready to Friday to fly out to Seattle, so I will say, since I'm going to be on a family vacation, I probably will not have a show next week. We'll go ahead and I'll probably do like maybe a short or something to announce it during the week next week. But I don't. We're getting an Airbnb, and I don't know what the internet's going to be like or anything. So rather than try to do something okay, so I didn't have the microphone on. Try to do something and make it not work. I figured we'll just skip next week. So, hey Ryan, how you doing? No, it could be low. See if that's any better. I didn't have all the switches on. Oh, it looks like the batteries are low too. Let me see if I get some batteries. All right, let me just change the batteries real quick. Is that it? See if that's any better. Yeah, we got a bright power light now, so hopefully that fixes that situation. See Chuck's on. All right, thanks, Red and Set. Appreciate the heads up on that. Yeah. So anyway, like I was saying, next week family vacation. So we're gonna be going to Seattle, and like I said, I don't know what the internet situation is gonna be in the Airbnb. I have no idea where we're going. So we'll just go ahead and call a skip for next week, and I'll go ahead and, like I said, I'll put out some shorts or something during the week with my phone just to let everybody know. So hey Ryan, how you doing? So anyway, here in the shop I almost have the Buick T-Type finished. It's actually completely wired. Dash is installed. I was waiting for some clips for the dash. They never showed up. I'll have to check on that. But yeah, it's just about ready. Just don't have any tuning done on it yet, so it won't be able to leave before I go out of town. And I have Scott's Skylark, which I just did the dry shaft carrier bearing relocation. I just finished it about 20 minutes ago, so I have to set the U-joint angles and stuff, get that all set up, but hopefully that'll be ready to rock and roll Thursday night, so he can take it to some shows on the weekend. And I got to go out and do 2 remote tunes and an alignment tomorrow, so busy days till I get out of town. Hey Dawn and Bill, how you doing? So anyway, we've been working on this electrical system. We did part 1, kind of just gave an overview about instructions and trying to figure out how to lay things out and stuff like that. We went over components and the different components that you would use for automotive system, solenoids, relays, diodes, obviously switches. We didn't go over switches much, but I mean switches usually either on or off unless it's a momentary. And then we went over connectors, crimps, and the tools you need to make proper crimps. We went over wiring and wire diameters, and how to look up amps draw or voltage drop for a certain size cable for a certain length. So with all that information, we're basically ready to go ahead and wire the car. So hopefully So far, everybody's kind of understood what we talked about. I'm gonna try to put it all together tonight, best I can do. But feel free if at the end of the show you got or during the show if you got some questions, let's get them in the chat so we can discuss them and or put them in comments and we can go back over some of it on the next episode. So some of this stuff, you guys that have been watching most of the shows, we're going to see some of this again. Some may see this for the first time. And I don't think I have these in order. Once again, totally prepared. Let me see here. Let me just get this queued up here. Now it's kind of mixed. It's kind of round and about. So let's let me go back here. Okay, so these are some of the pictures from Dave's Chevelle when I wired that up. Wow, probably a year and a half ago. So we'll go over this stuff, and then hopefully it'll kind of put everything, all the pieces together for you. So here's a painless wiring harness kit, American Automotive. A lot of these companies that have the fuse box pre-wired are going to be basically the same. Now there are some stuff like Ron Francis and some of the other ones that is just a fuse box and you have to add all the wires to it. So they're a little bit more intricate and you have to think ahead a little bit more than that. But with a typical kit like this, you get your manual, you get the wiring harness, and it's usually very long. And then they give you packages of connectors like the Series 56 that most GM cars use, and then just whatever other connectors and stuff that you need. Some of the kits will even come with the wire loom. And then, of course, like if you're going to do fuel injection, this is a Terminator X Max. This is what we put in the Chevelle. So this does the complete fuel injection and the standalone transmission. We didn't do it on Dave's car, but it will also do drive-by-wire on the throttle bodies. So one of the things I like to do is look at all the instructions and figure out what needs to be connected to other connections. So here's our transmission sub harness, and up here in the top we have three loose wires on this. One down here goes to the brake switch. This red-white goes to ignition switch, and the red goes to our fuse box. And there's actually a black for a ground also. So you want to keep those in mind. And what I typically will do, there's another picture of, like I said, these aren't in complete order. Let me see where we're at here. So what you'd want to do is, go through all your different things. Here's our painless kit, and then some of the other components that we put in the car. We got an amplifier, speakers, obviously, remote amps and subwoofers got to get mounted. You got power wires and stuff. There's our fuel injection stuff. And what I usually do is try to take a box and put all the instructions in that box so that while you're working on it and when you're done, write notes in the instructions as you go, and then you have something to fall back on down the road once the car has been wired. And if there is an issue or, a couple years down the road, a component breaks or burns up, you can go through your notes and kind of figure out where you were with it. So these are really good boots to use to wire through your doors to get your electric windows and speakers, whatever you have in there. Okay, that's weird, but I'll go ahead and try to get this back up again. Hey Ron, hey Chris. So you want to lay out all your instructions like I said, so you can kind of piece everything together. And then what I do is I start with paper and I start writing out notes. And obviously with the painless stuff, you get a circuit number. Other harnesses, you may just get names. So whatever identification you want to use, but you want to try to start laying everything out in groups. So here we've got our dimmer switch and power windows and locks, cigarette lighter, because this is basically like the dash area. You got your digital, Dakota digital, head unit, radio, ignition switch, jam switches, courtesy lights, wipers, brake switch, turn signal. Over here we have our headlights. So this would be like the front of the car. This is kind of like the firewall. You got your wipers and stuff like that, your starter wires. So once you start doing that, let me go ahead and advance to where I was trying to get to. Well, here's some other things that in that same realm. You're getting the instructions and you're figuring out where things have to connect. So here I've got a schematic of the Terminator X, and I went ahead and highlighted the areas that have to be connected to the rest of the car. Everything else is a standalone, so you don't have to worry about that stuff. There's our trans control again. Here's our Dakota digital. Again, some of this doesn't get used, or if you're going to use it, like the Dakota digital, you got all your sensors that go out. However, if you're using like a Holley EFI, you can use a BIM box, a BIM box, and this is for the clock. Where's the BIM? Here's that's a universal gear shift. That's another one, and here's the BIM box. And so what this does, it connects to the CAN bus on the Holley, and then it connects here back to the main control of the Dakota digital. So that way you don't have to wire in all of the individual sensors, your coolant temp, your oil pressure, tach, speedo, all those things you don't have to wire in, because the Holley is already monitoring all that, and that way you can transfer it all through the CAN bus, and you don't have to have double sensors all over the engine. So especially like on an LS, there's not a lot of places to put some of these sensors, so it's easier to use this BIM control and do it that way. Then we go to our air conditioning. We have a vintage air system on it. So once again, I just kind of highlighted all the important wiring that I needed to add to the different subsections of the vehicle. Here's stereo stuff, amplifier, the back of the radio, keyless entry. Here's the door locks. Now you can tell by the instructions, a lot of this stuff is not from the same manufacturer. So this is the important why you want to lay all this stuff out ahead of time, so that you don't have to keep adding or splicing wires as you go. Once you have all this stuff figured out ahead of time, you can start laying it all out where you're going to run everything from in the first place. Here's some reversing relays that we had to use to put the secondary window switches in Dave's car. And then here's the taillights. If you're going to use the LED taillights, you got to have specific wiring for that. And that's on his car. We have halo headlights that are you can actually get a remote and change the colors and stuff. Again, you just want to know all this stuff ahead of time, so you're not having to backtrack after you get started. So once you have all that stuff, you write down a list of where everything is, where it's going to be mounted. So like your radio module, obviously that's going to be in the dash. Your amplifier in Dave's car we put in the trunk. So we kind of laid all that out on paper and put all the, try to combine all the components that are in the trunk: taillights, fuel sender, fuel pump, whatever else you're going to put back there. So we have that all kind of laid out, so we know what has to go back to that part of the car. Headlights and stuff like that. And here's, they give you, break it down into subsections, which makes it handy, and they give you all the circuit numbers. Here's our charging system. So once again, all the wires, wire 916. So 916 is your power source. 995 is the regulator power. You got 919 for your starter solenoid. So pretty handy there. Plus they have the wires all marked. Headlight dimmer switch, depending on whether it's column mounted or floor mounted, or if you were going to use toggle switches. Either way, you need to have all these circuits kind of laid out so you know which way you're connecting it. Here's your headlight switch, so you can see where all those wires go. They don't actually show you the switch itself because it depends on what switch you're using, but they give you all the circuits and what they're doing so you know how to pin the lamp. Turn signal switch. This is typical GM, so typically if you're going to use a Flaming River or I Did It or any of the other universal steering columns, they all usually are wired to GM colors. So there's all your colors. So they already break it all down for you. And there's your pre-wired radio, backlights, wipers, power door locks, all these different circuits, cigarette lighter or power port. All these things amp turn on, all this stuff is already placed in the harness. And the nice thing is if you don't have those components, you can always remove the wiring or change it if you're going to use the wires for something else. Say like in this particular instance, wiper switch. We didn't use the stock wiper switch. We put a Detroit Speed in, which needed a power wire. So the yellow ignition power wire was already in the harness. So we just laid it out to where that module was going to be placed, and we were able to eliminate a lot of extra wiring in the car. And it's still, now the unit is still wired directly to the fuse box, so that the wiper fuse is for the wiper fuse. Just makes it a lot easier than having, a lot of the other components will come with their own fuse. Well, here you can eliminate that and go right to the fuse box and use the fuse already labeled for that. Taillight section, obviously this is, all kind of the same thing. Just gives you a good indication of all the stuff you're going to use. So that's the section on there. Let me just see where we're at here. Okay, so after I've done my paperwork, and I've done it 2 or 3 times, I've had to scratch stuff out and move things around and stuff like that. Then I go and I finally put it all out on a spreadsheet so that it's clear and I can see where everything's going to go. So the way I laid it out is this is the front of the car. So we have left front corner, center of the radiator support, right front. So you got your headlights, your side markers. In the center, we have our binary AC switch that's mounted to the AC condenser. So we need, the Vintage Air has to have wires going out to it. The Holley needs a wire going to it for output, for input, to tell the ECU when the air conditioning is turned on. And then we have 2 wires coming from the Holley to turn the 2 fans on. So, and then of course here's the horn, which is the 924. That's a Flaming River number. And then the A and B numbers, those are Holley numbers. So now we know that when we lay the harness out, those wires have to be added into that harness. At the firewall, this was the actual original wiring for the original switch, which we later switched that out to Detroit Speed. And once we get past here, now this would be an invisible line. I'm not very good with Excel sheets, so I wasn't able to put a dash across there. But here's we're now working in the dash area. So we have our dimmer switch, we have under dash, we have our Holley terminator mount and the wires that need to be used there. And we have our vintage air wires. And then we have our Dakota digital box that goes behind the dash, our radio, and our door jamb switches. From there, we have our driver's door and passenger door for windows and locks. And we have our turn signals, which is in the column of the switch, wiper switch, brake switch, and our light switch. So that's all basically dashboard stuff. Then we move on to our power seat power. And then we go to the back of the car where we have our tail lights and our trunk, our license plate, fuel level, amp turn on, and the right side lights. So that kind of gives you an idea of how you want to lay everything out. And so let me see here. All right, so here is some stuff I filmed a while back. I don't remember exactly everything in here, but we'll go over it. And basically, I think I'm showing how I measure everything, because that's the next step. Now you have your layout. You're going to set your fuse box either on the floor or get a sheet of plywood or something, mount it, and then start making your marks to where all your wiring is going to go. So let's watch this. All right, so now that we have all of our instructional papers figured out, and we got a roadmap built on where the wiring goes, now we need to figure out how long the leads need to be on the actual harness and what we have to do there. So what I like to do is I like to take vacuum hose, because it's the size of a small bundle of wire, and I will place it in the car where the wiring harnesses will lay out. So I'll take my vacuum hose and come off of the bulkhead block there, make a nice little loop. On this car, I've actually made a shelf where the wiring harness will lay up above here. And I'll put some tape up here in the corner, up there in the corner, and I'll write a note on there that that's going to be a branch, and then that branch is going to have the left turn, left side marker, and the headlight high and low beam. It's all going to come off that branch and leave about 6 inches of lead, and then it'll tuck in and go across to the front of the car. So then I'll lay the vacuum hose under this core support, just like it would if it was coming from the stock vehicle. And you can see I marked here, right at the hood latch assembly, and that's going to be marked horn and AC binary switch, and it'll have a length of wire that comes off of there. So on there I've got 20 inches on the horn and 12 inches on the binary switch. So that's how long the legs will be. And then it'll continue on. Now this would normally be underneath this piece, but there is the fan output for the relays. And then it's going to tuck in into the wheel well. And then our ending spot for the right headlight. So now I can pull that vacuum hose out and I can lay that against the harness, and I can go ahead and build that section. So I'll go ahead and do this for the entire car. This is the front side. Now I'll go inside from where the fuse box will be. I'll clamp it in, then I'll run it through all the clamps. All right, so now we can take our vacuum hose and lay it along our wiring harness, and that's going to tell us where the branches have to go and how long it's going to be. Now, the reason we make our sheets of where the wiring goes, since this car has a Dakota digital dash, a lot of these wires here are not going to be needed, because the pink is for choke or ignition. The pink is for coil, which our coil is going to be the Terminator X-Max. The red
is choke, which we have in choke, it's fuel injected. The green and the blue and these other wires are for gauges, gauge senders, which we have decoded digital, so we don't need these. These 3 wires here are for the wipers. We're not going to bring the wiper harness out this way. We're going to bring it right below the wiper unit to make the car clean under the hood. And the red and the purple is for the starter solenoid, and red is for battery power. Well, the battery is mounted in the trunk, and we have a stud mount on the floor, in the passenger floor. So this wire will be pulled out of this engine harness and brought along across the inside of the dashboard over to the opposite side and connected to a bulkhead battery stud. And the purple starter solenoid wire will bring out with the EFI harness in the center of the firewall, which will go straight down to the starter. So the main theme with this is going to be to have all the wiring hidden on this vehicle, so it's not going to go where normal wiring system would go. So that's the reason why we build all those paperwork, to identify where all the components are going to go, and that way we can build the harness exactly the way we need it to fit the car. Okay, so using our chart, we could see the colors that we needed for the left front, for the center, and for the right front. Now the wipers and the starter aren't going in that mix, so they'll come through the firewall to a different location. So there's the harness. And using the vacuum hose, we've got our branches. Here's our first branch. Here's our second branch. Fan control branch, and the right headlight marker assembly. So this harness is ready to be covered and installed in the car. Now, your harnesses may not be exactly the same. This car, I'm hiding all the wiring in different locations so you can't see any, so it's obviously a little bit different. Normally, all the wires that I removed out of this control for gauges, battery control, starter, that would all been left in and then routed so that it would follow the same loom. But just showing you how I do it. So now we'll go to the inside of the car, use the vacuum hose and do the same thing. Obviously there'll be a lot more branches and stuff in there, but we'll keep moving forward. All right, so here's our harness. This is the under dash harness, and as we talked about before, we took our vacuum hose, clamped into where the fuse box would sit, and then we went and measured. So we have 25 inches to the dimmer switch, 35 inches to the Holley system. The wipers, customer changed his mind, and we put a Detroit Speed, which has got its own wiring harness, so we didn't need to use that. Starter 58 inches, Vintage Air 45 inches, Dakota Digital is 33, radio 53, door locks 24 to the drivers, 86 to the passenger, driver's doors 24 inches, got turn signals at 53, passenger door at 83, yellow wire power to the Detroit Speed 25. We have 5 inches to the circuit breaker, and then 24 to the seat for the power seat. 55 inches to the brake switch. 33 inches to the light switch. So from that information, we start making our harness. So here's our fuse panel. The harness goes up. We go out to these components. There's our turn signal, ignition, and that's going to be terminated for neutral safety and reverse lights. This is our harness for Dakota Digital. This is our dimmer switch. This mess still goes to the back of the car, so that system, I really don't worry about the measuring it, because we're going to lay the harness out, and once we get into the trunk, we'll figure out the lengths that we need to go. Here's our headlight and our power wire to the wipers. We go across the dash. Here's the center of the dash where we have our power to our power lock unit, power window unit, stereo, all that. Here's our wires for the AC turn on and dash light for the AC. And then here, all the way over to this other side, we've got our main battery power. We've got this connector here goes into the door, or at the door. That's got power. And then the 2 wires for the power window motor and door lock motor. And then this is our dimmer contact switch for the courtesy lights that go to the button, and then also a courtesy light for under dash. And you can see this harness. Now I'm put the zip ties in a couple inches and laying out the wire nice. Here's where I'm at right now. I'll continue on. And then at all these joints here, I'm going to put terminations there. They'll all be terminated. And then I will show you where I'm at when I'm done. All right, so the harness is now pretty much completed. We've got connector for the doors, for the lock and windows, courtesy lights. That's for the AC. We got door lock switches, door window switches, door locks, radio, power and courtesy lights for the console, cigarette lighter, dash light, Dakota digital. We got our starter solenoid wire, turn signal, ignition switch, brake switch, neutral, safety and reverse lights. The other door connector, headlights, and that's the power for the Detroit Speed window windshield wipers. Got our dimmer switch, power to the circuit breaker for power seat, a couple extra connectors there. We got our clutch and Holley inputs there for the fans. We got our dome light wiring, and that's the taillight harness that has to be laid out in the car. So that's what it looks like now. It's all terminated and tied up, so now we'll go ahead and install it in the car.
All right, so that was an old video that I had made when we were getting ready to lay that system out, and just kind of showing how it went. Let me back up here. I don't really have any clean pictures on it, but anyway, hopefully you guys kind of got the idea of how that was. Hey Cole, how you doing? So basically, as we said, as I talked about earlier, you just got to kind of make a roadmap for yourself of where all this stuff is going. Now, obviously, on this car, there was a lot of components in there with the fuel injection, Dakota digital, stereo with amp and all that stuff. So, some guys, I'm sure when Rick wires his 55, he's going to use the factory, gauges or maybe mechanical gauges. So, you have to kind of figure out what your package, you need to figure out what components you're going to put in your car before you start. And that way you can lay it all out and it'll all make sense. And it just won't be a bunch of spliced wires all over the place, and it will end up being a trouble-free wiring job when you're done, because you thought about the process, you laid it all out, all your different components, you picked up the powers and grounds that you needed, and it just makes the whole thing come out way better. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, go ahead and say something in the chat there. I just had to take a peek. The shop inspector's going nuts over there. But not as in much of a system or what have you, but here's a race car that I did a while back. Yeah, easy for me in the 28. It all depends on the components. If you don't have many components, it's a pretty easy job. The more components you put in, the more, the crazier the wiring gets. I didn't want to do that. So let me open up this other one here. So I did a race car not too long ago. I showed some of this on the previous chats, but I just kind of show you again. And these are just to give you guys ideas of how you have to work your roadmap, so to speak, your instructions, your notes, so that when you're putting it together, it all makes sense when you're all done. And it makes it so much easier when you know all the components are going to be and where the wiring goes. If you just start throwing stuff together, you put the harness in, and then you put your air conditioning in, you put your gauges in. Now you got to splice it all in. It makes it cumbersome. Plus the fact now you're working, upside down under the dash or whatever, what have you, where most of this could be done on the ground or on a table and all laid out, pretty nice and easy. And then all you have to do is install it in the car. And of course, depending on, when you lay your stuff out, you can kind of come up with whether you want to make it really tight and neat and tidy and keep your numbers pretty good, or if you have, you want to make sure you have enough room, you add a couple inches to every component, and then it still lays out real easy. So, but anyway, here's a race car that I did. So in the race cars, we run a lithium battery. So here's the Braille 16-volt battery mounted on the firewall. And we got our quick connect here that goes to the charger. So when this car does not have an alternator, so you have to charge the battery between laps on the track. So I make a connector like that, so it's a quick plug-in. You don't have to worry about kind of getting the alligator clips and stuff on. Even like in Dave's car, when I put the battery in the trunk, I put lugs on the back at the back bumper so you could jump start the car without having to take all the interior, because the trunk is fully lined, as a full interior in it. So it would take 20-30 minutes to get all that apart to jump start the car if you had to, or put a battery charger on it, where with the lugs behind the bumper, you just 2 alligator clips right there, boom, and you can jump start the car, or you can just charge the battery, whatever you want to do. But in this situation, we just run a quick connect right here, and then per rules, we have to have a kill switch so that in case of an accident, a safety worker can hit the battery kill switch on the back of the car, and it disconnects all power from the vehicle. So that's what this solenoid is here. This is a 500 amp solenoid. Balance leads on the... Yeah, I don't quite understand that. But we have chassis ground right here, and we have our solenoid right here. Now, for the main vehicle power, yeah, they are unbelievably light. I think that battery weighs 2.5 pounds or something. It's amazing, and it has so much power. You can bump the motor around, adjust valves and stuff. It's incredible how well they work and how long they last. But it's hard to see in this picture, but for the main car, wrench, I think I don't know how many cells they put in those, because I've never had one apart, but typically I believe lithium cells are usually 3 volts a piece, I believe, or 2.5, something like that. So however many that would be, but they could double them up and put them in parallel too. So I'm not really 100% sure on that, but it's like 1,300 cranking amps. It's pretty ridiculous. But in this picture, it's kind of hard to see right here, but there's a 125 amp circuit breaker. So that's the circuit breaker for all of the accessories in the car. Let's see here. Let me go back to the beginning of it. So in a race car, where the battery is mounted, this is the ignition system and fuse panel, relay panel. And so it has to be removed to be able to get to the battery. So I built this board. I think the battery, those, I see what you're saying now. These don't, the lithium batteries, the Braille doesn't, because I believe it has a BMS built into the battery. So all you do is connect the charger, and it does all the balancing between cells. I know I have a lithium battery in my golf cart, which is a 36 volt, and it has a BMS in it also. So it takes care of all that. That keeps you from overcharge, and keeps you from running the battery completely dead. It'll disconnect it before all that goes in. But yeah, when you get to lithium batteries, you definitely want to have one that has BMS built into it. If you don't have a BMS built in, then you have to really watch, like you say, balancing all your leads and stuff to make sure all that stuff's so it'll charge properly. So anyway, so this panel has to be is Zeused into the car. This is our relay board, so we have a switch panel. This doesn't have an ignition switch. It's got a switch panel in the car, and it mounts up on the roll cage, and this operates all your relays for your ignition, starter, water pump, fuel pump, fans, nitrous, whatever accessories you have on. There's the back. So I've got these connectors here in Deutsch, which will allow us to unplug this unit so this whole panel can be removed directly from the car without having to disconnect any leads. So there it is mounted in the car. So you can see you can still get to your charging lead and your battery post. Of course, the big relay and the battery disconnect solenoid are mounted behind it, so that's why the panel has to be removable. There's an up close picture with it all wired in. We've got our black, I think it's a 24 pin computer cable. It's all low amperage. That's what goes from the switch panel down to our control board. And then these strips across the top are where other components are turning things on and off. So that's how, like bump buttons for adjusting the valves. We have buttons on the firewall to bump the engine over so that it'll turn on. And then also the transmission has a dump valve which controls the transmission. You got trans brake. So all those signal wires come out here so that these relays can then activate or deactivate whatever component they're connected to. And just another picture of it. So let me go. Oh, crap. I'm sorry. I wasn't even on the screen. Let me go back here. That was crazy. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's try this again. There's our circuit board that we made. That's before it was installed in the car. Sorry I didn't have the pictures up for you guys. Got our MSD grid there. That runs the entire ignition system and timing controls and all that. These are the Deutsch connections I put on the back side so that this panel can be removed so you can get to the battery for servicing it. And there it is mounted in the car. So you have your battery, your charging cable, and of course the heavy duty solenoid and 125 amp relay that our circuit breaker fuse that powers this board up is all behind there. So that's why it's removable, so you can remove it to get to it. There's a little bit closer picture to it. And what I was explaining up here is that's our computer cable from our switch panel. And then up here is our low amperage wiring that goes into do additional controls for the different relays to power up different things on the system. And these are really nice boards because you have a fuse on this side. This is your main battery lug. So you have a red LED here that shows that you're getting power through your fuses. And then you have a green LED out here that shows when the relay is activated and it's outputting voltage to whatever that relay is connected to. So when you crank the starter, this is the start lug here, it'll actually turn green while you're bumping the engine. When the ignition's on, that'll turn green. So fuel pump, water pump. So it makes it really quick for diagnosing when you're at the racetrack. And just another angle of it. So now is why it was getting ready to switch. Let me advance back here. Okay. So again, we want to go with the same system. We want to look at our instructions, and then we're going to build a roadmap, and then we'll build our components. So here's our relay box, and here's showing us all of our low amperage connections here. So we have a ground to this terminal here is used for a bump starter. And then you've got your trans brake, neutral safety, and all those ignition input and stuff. That's all there to help activate these units. And then they give you more information here for all your different relays, what you need, how it needs to be wired to make them work. And then they show grounding, powers. Of course, grounding is something that I really didn't talk about much earlier, but grounding is super important. So let me just break away here for a second for grounding. So Dave's Chevelle that we were talking about earlier. Now there's a car that the battery's in the trunk. So you can use your chassis as a ground. On a unibody car, I usually will run a ground wire all the way to the front of the car, because a unibody is a bunch of sheet metal spot welded together, and it doesn't have the robust amount of metal to carry the load of amperage. So I like to make a ground loop for those. But like on Dave's car, which was a full frame car, we got a 1 gauge battery going from the cable from the battery ground to the frame. And the frame, all the paint, powder coat, etc. is cleaned, and we have a solid, good connection. And then in the front of the car, we come off the frame to. I usually go right at the motor mount, so I take one of the bolts out of the frame-mounted side of the motor mount, and then loop it to the engine side of the motor mount. And of course, wherever the ground wires go to, I will clean all the material off, so I'm not relying on the threads to make the contact. I want all bare metal contacts. So we'll ground that, and then what I do, because some things will be grounded to the body of the car, so then what I do is 4 corners, I'll take a ground strap, a braided ground strap, typically 10 gauge, and I go from the frame to the body at both rear bumper mounts for your tail section, and then I'll do it again at the front where the firewall meets the frame. And that way, so we've got 4 10 gauge ground straps, and we have a 1 gauge to the frame, and we have 1 gauge from the frame to the engine block. So now we have grounds going to everything that needs grounds. Ryan says grounding mistakes will mess with your head. Yes, grounds are super, super important. In fact, in race cars, and on LS engines or any engine where you're going to run coil unplug, you need to run a ground to your cylinder head, because your spark plug needs a ground to fire at the spark plug. So in that situation, we always put an additional ground to the back of the cylinder heads, so that we make sure that they have a good ground so we can fire all the spark energy that we're trying to produce. Very important on a boosted or nitrous application, where you're running, or anywhere time when you're running a high, like a MSD 7, MSD 10, you're running a magneto or coil unplug. You want to have a separate ground going from between both heads and to the into the frame. Yes, anytime you're working with fuel injection, you're right, Ron. Anytime you're working with fuel injection, grounding is super important. And the best way I can say is you cannot put enough grounds on your car. If you go with that mindset, you'll be fine. You do not want to go and just say, oh, I've got a ground going from the firewall braided to the back of the engine, as a GM car would have from the factory that was carbureted. That was fine for a carbureted car when you didn't have any high amperage components on the engine and transmission. And one of the cool things, or it wasn't cool, but back in the day, I used to work at the Gator Nationals and at the Atlanta Raceway NHRA events at the Excel Mr. Gasket trailer, and I was the local EFI technician. So they would have me go to the races so I could answer fuel injection questions. And I guess you can probably hear that the shop inspector is going nuts over there. Anyway, we would get people all the time coming up to the trailer, and they would tell us how our shifter cable from Hurst or B&M is a piece of crap because it melted. And I have to explain to them that the cable, the shifter is fine. The reason it melted is because you don't have a ground in your car, and every time you hit the starter button, it used the shifter cable as a ground, and eventually burnt the cable and welded it together. It took a minute to get people to understand that. So grounds are very, very important. Rensen says grounds on the back of the heads from the factory for same reason. Exactly right. Exactly right. Ryan says especially LS, they need grounds everywhere. Yes. As I say, you cannot put too many grounds on there. And, you know, yeah, pretty funny, right? Cole with the shifter cables. And I cannot tell you how many people. I mean, every event I worked them probably for about 5 years, so I probably went to at least 10 events. And I can't tell you that at least every race weekend, 3 people came up and were all bent out of shape because their shifter cable burned up, and they couldn't understand why. Hopefully they listened to what I said and replaced them and didn't have any problems after that, I hope. But yeah, you know, your original carbureted cars, you would see a small braided wire going from the firewall to the back of the engine. Typically was like a 12 gauge or maybe even 14 gauge braided line. It wasn't very thick at all because there was you know, you had a choke and a coil. You're talking maybe 7 or 8 amps, so it didn't need much. But when you start, you know, relocating your battery and stuff like that, that's when grounds become really, really, really important. So, yeah. So, shopping sector needs. Yeah. He's been in his playpen all afternoon, and of course it's we have falling iguana weather again, so it's pretty cold outside. So, but. We'll go in a little bit. So anyway, so to get back on track here, this is just giving us more instructions of how we do this. We had a control box for our nitrous, and it also would operate the transmission controls. So again, I highlighted what wires need to be connected out of that particular unit's harness that had to be connected to the car. Here's another one for the nitrous controls and breakdowns of that. Yeah, falling iguana weather for sure. Anytime it gets down low, they drop out of the trees. Here's our MSD ignition power grid. And again, it gave you all the wires that needed to be connected to different pieces. And then what I did was I drew a map. Now, on this vehicle, yeah, it's definitely an easy way to get them. On this car, I gave the customer a drawing with the wiring schematic in color. That way, if they were in a race and in a scramble, it made it a little easier for them to do quick diagnosis, because at the racetrack you don't have time or the luxury of waiting till the next day or whatever. You need to get it fixed before the next round. So, but basically came up with the same stuff. And then this was another schematic for all the other pieces added onto it. We had the headlight and the fuel pump. The ignition coil is a single coil. Let me see here. I put my glasses on. Water pump. We had power control there for the nitrous. Our starter wires, MSD, our relays. And that needed to be connected from the other components. We had dump valve, shift solenoid. So all of this stuff, we laid it all out, did the same exact method by using vacuum hose to get our distances and made, figured out the layout. And that's how we got to this. And that's, so that's basically all I can really give you. No, I didn't say I was going to eat it. There are a lot of people that do eat them. They call it chicken of the trees. But no, no. I do not eat iguana. Nothing like that at all. But they are a invasive species, and they're very troublesome. They tear up a lot of stuff, and the Florida Game and Wildlife says it's good to eradicate them if it is at all possible. So when we have cold weather, it calms them way down. For the last couple of years, we haven't had any cold winters, and boy, you get like I go like golfing and you're around the lakes and stuff. I mean, they're everywhere. Yes, you're right. They carry salmonella, and they're urinary. They're whenever they defecate, it's actually corrosive to concrete and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things that they're just bad. So I know some people don't like them or don't like to hear about that, but it is what it is. But Mother Nature is helping take care of that. So us in Florida, we have all these wildlife. We have all these alligators everywhere, which they're natural. And we have an infestation in the Everglades of boa constrictors. People have, just like the iguanas, over the years, 30, 40 years of people releasing their pets once they got too big, and then they find their way to the Everglades or the iguanas anywhere where there's water and fruit and trees, and then then they start mating and overpopulating the area. So they have boa constrictor hunts in the Everglades, and there are companies that will eradicate iguana, and of course when it gets cold, Mother Nature helps out with that. So, but anyway, so hopefully this sheds some light on wiring a car. Hopefully makes it so where you're maybe not so gun shy of attempting to do something like this. It's not, Well, I mean, basically everything in your car, if you understand how the system operates, it makes it a lot easier to wrap your head around what you need to do to try to figure out why it isn't working, or how to diagnose why it's not working, or whatever you want. So hopefully that all makes sense to you guys, and we'll move on from there. Wrench says, I would eat an alligator for sure, nothing more than eating a top predator. Yeah, the alligator tail, I gotta say, is good to eat. They are restaurants in Florida that do sell alligator tail. That's basically all that they really use for food. They don't really eat much else of the body. Of course, alligators make good boots and handbags and all that kind of stuff too. So I've seen upholstery shops use alligator hides for inserts and seats and for customized stuff and all kinds of stuff. So Ron says supposedly there is a new meat-eating lizard in Florida, the Nile monitor. Yes, I did see something about that they are starting to see those, and that is a very dangerous predator. And the problem with the boa constrictors and the iguanas and now the Nile monitors is there is nothing in our ecosystem that is a predator to them. So they just keep overpopulating over and over again because there's nothing to stop them. So unfortunately, it's a mess. It really sucks that it has to come to that, to where they have to be gotten rid of. But they're not native, and they're harming other ecosystems by preying on other stuff. So crazy stuff. But luckily we've had I guess it's El Nino weather demand. So we've been here in South Florida, where we typically don't see very much cold weather, but we've probably had 24 days now at different times that we've been below 40 degrees. About 45 is where the iguanas kind of go into a hibernation state. That's why they fall out of the trees. And if it gets cold enough and stays long enough, it will kill them. I know the last cold spell we had, when I'm walking Benji, the shop inspector, we've seen dead iguanas in the yard, because they're there for a couple of days and then they start decomposing. So I know they weren't just stunned and stuff like that. So anyway, hopefully that back to the wiring. Hopefully this all makes sense. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments or email me, and I'll try to elaborate more on what's going on. Oh, that's all right, Rick. We don't need any of the snow. And I don't know, are you guys getting any of that nor'easter that's up there? I know my brother-in-law has a summer house in Rockport, Mass, and I know they're getting slammed up there. Cape Ann weather, I follow them on Facebook, and they were saying they saw 90+ mile an hour winds, which you can imagine make some pretty good waves and wave action in the ocean. 14 inches. Wow. Sorry about that. But that's why I live in Florida. The snow is not something I want to deal with. I don't like the heat in the summer, but you know what? I'd rather have the heat, because you can always, go to shorts and tank tops, and you can always jump in the pool. There's many things, you jump in the air conditioning. There's many things you can do to cool off. But man, I have a real problem with trying to get heated up. Once I get cold, I can't get warm. And like I said at the beginning of the show, for the people who came in late, I am leaving Friday to go to Seattle, which freaking cold there, but it's not quite as bad. They're showing morning lows of mid-high 40s and high 50s, low 60s during the day, so it won't be too bad. I'll stay in the Airbnb until the sun comes up and starts warming things up. I left Florida week too early. Yes, sir. You should have stayed another week. Yeah, so again, we will not have a show next week. I do not know what the internet is out there in the Airbnb, and I don't know what my youngest daughter has planned as far as events. So rather than try to hustle something up, I figured we would just skip next week, and I will go ahead and put some stuff on during the week to kind of remind everybody about that. And of course, next week I'll put stuff up to remind people that we will have a show the following week. So Wrenchson says, Seattle, no thanks for many reasons. Yeah, I'm only going for a couple of days. My youngest daughter likes it out there. She lives actually in St. Louis, which isn't much better, but she's been out to the Seattle area twice already in the last year and a half on trips, and she's a hockey fan, and the Seattle Kraken are her favorite team. So we're gonna go out and see a hockey game, and then she's gonna take us around and show us the sites that she knows about. We'll be out there for 4 or 5 days, and yeah. Well, none of us live there. We're just going to visit. So we'll go in and get out quickly, and not take any of the ideals back with us. We'll leave them there. So anyway, I've never been out that far. I've been the farthest west I've been is to Vegas, and that was back in the 90s, and that was for the SEMA show. Otherwise, I'm pretty much stay east of the Mississippi. So this will be, it'll be an adventure, and hopefully we'll have fun. I'm sure we will, and we'll be back the following Thursday, and then again we'll get prepped up for a good show. Then I'll think about it during the week. If I don't, the week and a half, if I don't see any questions or anything that we need to go back over on the wiring, I'll come up with a new series to do for episode 135, which will be, let me get my phone here. So that'll be on the 10th. March 10th will be the next live show. So anyway, I appreciate everybody coming out. You guys that are up north or in the north end of the country, or wherever it may get cold, try to stay warm. I'm taking a ton of clothes with me to Seattle to stay warm, and hopefully everybody can get through these storms and stuff good. And I'll see everybody in 2 weeks. So just have everybody smash the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, so that way you can get notification. Ring the bell and you'll get instant notification whenever I put something up. And we'll start. We get some more videos to get on later on, and plus we'll keep up with the podcast live show. So I hope everybody has a great week. And let me cue the music. And we'll see everybody later. Have a great week. Thanks for watching.